On a personal note, I had the opportunity to do business with Rotary, purchased a phone system from me, and we installed it about a month ago, which they dated. They had a very old phone system. And I was afraid to go into the Humane Society because I love animals so much. But if I saw an animal in need, I would bring them on home. So I was like, I can't go in there, I can't go in there. Well, when I went in, I was so impressed how clean the facility is, how well cared for all of the animals are. They run and exercise the dogs 3 times or more a day. They're well fed. Their kennels are perfectly clean. And what impressed me most is when I went through, they took me a tour, and they took me by all the dogs, and usually dogs are anxious, and they bark if they see you walking by. All of those animals were so exhausted from all the exercise, from eating, they didn't even know I was there. So it was really nice to see them be comfortable and happy, so I felt so much better knowing they were taken care of, and that's why I invited Rachel to be here to share that experience with all of us. So with that, this is Rachel Finney.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I consider this a great pleasure to be able to talk with you today about the work of the Capital Area Humane Society and to introduce you to some of my friends. Many of you during quiet moments earlier have heard a couple of meows, and that's because I have 2 guests with me this afternoon. I have Atlas and I have Truffles. They're 2 kittens that are available for adoption from the Capital Area Humane Society. They're 10 weeks old, and I know far better after 10 years in animal welfare than to show you the kittens and expect you to be able to pay attention to me. So they will be up here ready to meet you when I'm done speaking. I can't handle the competition. So let's have a little bit of honesty here. Are we ready for that? You're a service above self organization. I'm sure you believe in truth and honesty. So play along with me. Raise your hand if I absolutely terrified you by just having my name on the speakers list for today. You were considering maybe not attending because it's the Humane Society. Lies, all lies. How many of you consider yourselves to be an animal lover? Good. I'm in good company. Animal lovers traditionally are afraid. They don't want to hear about the Humane Society, the work that we do, because they're afraid they're going to adopt. They're afraid they're going to be sad. They're afraid they're going to see something or learn about something that makes them uncomfortable. And we've got a lot of bad news to share in the world of animal welfare. Our world is not yet where we want it to be in terms of treating our animals fairly, with respect, with kindness and compassion. We have a lot of work to do. But that's the extent of the bad news, right? The good news is that there are organizations out there, people who are helping to do something about it, and that's the Capital Area Humane Society. We've been in existence since 1883. 130-year birthday is next month, a month from last week, as a matter of fact. And we're celebrating that with birthday parties all throughout Franklin County. So who the heck is the Capital Area Humane Society? We've been in business for 130 years, and how many of you have been there? Oh, excellent. We have work to do. Those of you who didn't raise your hand, you're going to be raising your hand at the end of the day to sign up for my tour, I promise. Right? So in 130 years, what do? Well, we are an agency that is a nonprofit organization. We are not a government agency. But a lot of people are confused about that because we carry badges. The Capital Area Humane Society is the law enforcement agency responsible for investigating animal cruelty and abuse in Franklin County. We are the animal cops. When you see on television that animals have been mistreated and they've been removed and they're now in loving care, that's with us. So we're law enforcement agents and we're a nonprofit. In the state of Ohio, a county humane society, and there can only be one, can have jurisdiction to enforce section of the code regarding animal cruelty and neglect. For Franklin County, that's the Capital Area Humane Society. Our humane agents, and there are 4 full-time and 1 part-time, run about 6,000 calls a year in Franklin County responding to animals in need. Yeah, 6,000. 84% of those calls are within the city of Columbus. But we're in neighborhoods in Worthington and in Dublin responding to animals in need. What kind of animals? All domestic animals. All the animals you keep on your property on purpose. How many of you have dogs? How many of you have cats? Turtles, gerbils, hamsters. Excellent. Very good. Right? We got some pets at home. How many of you happen to have an alligator in a bathtub at home? Guess what? There are people who can find alligators in their bathtub, and we're the ones who respond to that. In 2012, the Capital Area Humane Society served 29 different species. 29 different species. Everything from alligators and alligator gars to turtles, hamsters, gerbils, rabbits, you name it. Overwhelmingly, we serve cats. Taken 4 times more cats than dogs. America's #1 pet. There are more cats in homes than there are dogs in this country, and yet they're pretty much second-rate citizens. Dogs rule. Whether we want them to or not, right? America loves dogs. We have a long way to go for cats. There's a lot of need out there. There are an estimated 400,000 stray and free-roaming cats in Franklin County alone. I'd say we have some work to do. Agree? How many of you remember our good friend Bob Barker? Good. Excellent. I do a volunteer training session, and I have some teenagers in there who are like, Bob who? Oh. Well, Bob Barker said a long time ago to spay your pets, right? It's working. The number of animals that require service in our shelter and other shelters throughout central Ohio and all around the country, those numbers are starting to decline because we're spaying and neutering our pets. We have more work to do. We need to be spaying and neutering those cats that are outdoors that do not belong to anyone because they're making kittens every day. We have a lot of work to do. 6,600 cats came to the Capital Area Humane Society last year alone. Yeah, 6,600 of them. We have a lot of work to do. So our primary responsibilities are fighting animal cruelty. We're helping animals in need, right? We're advocating for their well-being. We serve about 9,500 animals a year. That number, like I said, is coming down. Still a tremendous volume. How do we provide care to them? We have a 36,000 square foot facility in Hilliard. Some of you have been there. We house all those different species and need to be ready for cats, dogs, rabbits, and more. Our third most popular species is rabbits. We have one of the largest sheltered rabbit populations in the state of Ohio because, well, they're reproducing like rabbits. And they need homes. How many of you have adopted from our facility or from another humane society or animal shelter? That's not enough of you. So, I want to remind you that I have kittens that are here later today. You'll never hear a pressured response or a pressured, guilt-driven approach from the Capital Area Humane Society because we know that people don't make very good decisions when they feel guilty. We want pets going into homes that are prepared to care for them, that are equipped, they're inspired, they're educated, they're motivated, and because they just don't want to, not because they were pressured into doing it. So when you come to our facility, you'll experience a very clean facility where it smells good and it looks good. Because we know that dogs and cats have far better ability to smell and to hear the world around them than even we do. And if we think it stinks, can you imagine what it must be like to live there all 24 hours of your day if it doesn't feel very good? It doesn't smell very good. And we're sensitive to that. So we're going to make sure that our facility feels good to the animals and to the people that visit us. And so if you're picturing this sad, scary, depressing facility, and you hear the Sarah McLachlan song and the bars, that's not us. That's not what we look like. That's not what we feel like. It feels good to be at our facility. And the animals feel that too. You know, often I'll get the response that, oh, I can't see them, it's going to be sad. If I see them there, I'll take them all home. Well, how many of you took your dogs for 4 or 5 walks yesterday? How many of you? Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to try not to do that. Good for you. Your dog is in the minority. How many of you took a good 45 minutes to focus just on your pet's well-being yesterday? No cell phones. Oh, very good. No cell phones. No running around. No television. Just said, this is my pet. This is my quality time with you. All of those animals in our care get get that, and they get that from people who love each and every one of those animals. So it could be sad, scary, and depressing if they were neglected, if they were without food or water, if they had injuries or illnesses that were going untreated, if they were yelled at, made to feel poorly. That doesn't happen in our building, it happens outside our building, and that's why those animals are with us. You think Humane Society, you think that's an organization about animals, right? That's fair. That's only a part of our work. Because we recognize and wholeheartedly embrace that if we don't do a good job providing care for people, we're not going to be doing a very good job providing for animals. So we take the time to get to know our client and what their needs are, whether they're bringing an animal to us or they're adopting an animal and taking one home. We pay really close attention to those needs. Those who are admitting an animal, whether it's a stray animal or perhaps a pet that someone can no longer keep or no longer wants to keep, they anticipate judgment when they walk in our doors, that they're going to be made to feel bad for bringing an animal to us. And for animal lovers, the first thing I often hear is, I could never surrender my animal to a shelter. I would just never do that. If I were moving, I would sleep in my car before I took an animal to a shelter. Well, what if you couldn't? What sounds like I'm moving and I can't take my pet with me really means I'm going into a domestic violence shelter that doesn't allow pets to come with me. And if I leave my pet at home, he will die. That's a reality in our world. 1 in 3 women are victims of domestic violence in some capacity. Up to 80% of the women and children that are admitted to domestic violence agencies report, up to 80% report that they considered not leaving at all, or they significantly delayed leaving a violent situation because they feared for what would happen for their pets. How many of you have pets? How many of you consider those pets to be family? Yeah. If your family is experiencing violence, your pet is experiencing violence. And it is such a motivating and powerful factor to keep those pets safe that they will stay. Because none of those domestic violence shelters in our community provide care for pets or have an allotment of services for them. So we do. We have a program called Safe Haven for Pets. We provide free boarding care, all of their veterinary care for the victims of domestic violence pets. So if it's a dog, cat, or a rabbit, it's going to be spayed or neutered, fully vaccinated, and microchipped before it leaves our facility. That family can go and get safe and be reunited with their pets. They don't have to say goodbye to their pets, and they do not have to fear for their pet's safety. We're an organization just about animals. I believe, and I see every day, that we're saving and enriching lives, and it's not just animal lives. Not long ago, it was actually last year, we had a woman come into our facility, and she had 2 cats, a dog, a cockatoo that screamed I'm pregnant, and I'm crap, by the way. Really hard to explain to the people who visit our facility. So 2 cats, 1 dog, a cockatoo, and a 7-year-old boy. And I walked into our admissions department. We had made an appointment with her, so we didn't have anyone else in our facility at that time in the admissions area. And she was talking with our clients about the different care that her pets needed. Her cat was diabetic. Her bird required special supplements and nutrients to stay healthy. And we're taking the time to get to know these pets and their individual needs. And her son, in our admissions lobby, has pushed 2 chairs together, pretty uncomfortable, ugly, plasticky chairs. And they had arms in the chairs, and we pushed them together, and he was lying down on those 2 chairs underneath. He had wedged himself underneath the arms of these chairs, and he was sleeping. And oh my goodness, he's not well. What can we do? What does he need? She said, I'm so sorry. He hasn't slept in 3 days. I got a blanket and a stuffed toy that was in my office. It was clean. It was for a dog, but now it's for him. And said, rest. Because here's a boy who had experienced so much trauma in his transition from his home life into a shelter for his family, his mom, and he couldn't rest until he knew he was safe, his mom was safe, and his pet that boy's sleeping, to me, that's incredible work. Yes, we take animals who have been in the most deplorable conditions, hoarding. 47 dogs and puppies were seized from one house 3 weeks ago. 46 of them had never been outside before. And you thought our place was going to smell bad. Right? These are the situations that our agents go into every single day of the year, 365 days a year, and it's sort of normal in our community. Hoarders are a part of your neighborhood, no matter where you live. I guarantee you have someone who's keeping too much of something. It might not be animals, it might not be the rats, the 130 that we took from our property last year. But it is a factor, it is happening. How many of you maybe have heard the saying, it came up from school shootings actually, where Mr. Rogers' quote about looking for the helpers came from? You hear about that? He said, I see so much trauma on TV, and as a child I really was terrified by it, and my mother always said, look for the helpers, because that will motivate and inspire you, and it'll make it okay. Well, we see some pretty terrible sides of human beings in our work. We see really the worst of the worst. But we can go to work every single day because we're surrounded by helpers. Last year, our volunteers served 38,000 hours. 540 of them. Those are the helpers. Our humane agents, our veterinarians that are able to help and heal animals in devastating conditions. Those are the helpers. And we see far more good than we do bad. But this is the work of the Capital Area Humane Society. And every one of those animals that comes to stay with us is going, whew, it is a good day. It is a good day. And every inch, every moment they're spending with us is a better one than the moment before. That's pretty good. When my head hits the pillow at night, I know that I've done everything in my power to make this community a better community for people and for animals. And I sleep well. I also wake up at the crack of dawn, 4:30. So inspired and excited to go to work. So what I really want from you today is that you'll share my message, you'll sign up to come for a tour and see and smell what we're doing. That you'll consider adoption from our organization or another animal welfare organization when you add a pet to your family. And more than anything else, that you'll share words with friends to let them know the good work of the Humane Society. Just go back to work, go back home and say, oh, Humane Society, been around 130 years, we're doing good stuff. That's going to help me get the resources we need to do our jobs. Because 91.5% of our budget, individual contributions and fees for services like adoption. We are literally running a law enforcement agency on donations. It's a big deal. So all the things that you can do to support us, whether it's making a gift, adopting one of our animals, or even just kind words to a friend or a neighbor about the work that we do, is really impactful to us. So I hope that you'll consider it, and I especially hope that you'll ask me some questions and then come pet my kittens. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Rachel, can you tell us about the law enforcement training for those officers?
The law enforcement training for the officers? Sure. The state of Ohio requires a 20-hour curriculum and an exam at the end of that curriculum to be able to enforce humane agent laws. In our organization, that's like this much of training a humane agent. So they go through their mandated training and they have to pass their exam. And then they spend a lot of time on the job training with our humane agents. Our chief humane agent, Carrie Mannion, has actually has worked for us in that role for 31 years. So you can't find anyone in the state that knows it better. And that's the kind of training that we do. Not just for our agents, but any humane agents in the community, other neighboring counties that would like some experience. Most humane societies do not offer full-time humane agents, let alone have a department as large as we do. So we'll do a lot of shadowing and job training for them.
I have heard that you touched on earlier on the television commercials for the United States Humane Society something. I've heard bad things about what they do with donations in terms of the percentage that goes to actually caring for the pets. Can you address what you know about that and how that compares to what you do with the same funds?
Yeah, absolutely. So this gentleman is wanting to know about the national organizations that do animal welfare work. The Humane Society of the United States and the ASPCA are two national organizations in animal welfare. HSUS is really more traditionally focused on lobbying and making laws change to make sure that penalties are tough enough for animal cruelty. They do not operate an animal shelter. Lots of photos of animal sheltering for companion animals. They don't do that work. The Capital Area Humane Society is not a member or franchise division of the Humane Society of the United States. They're totally independent. In fact, all of the humane societies in our state are completely independent of one another. The ASPCA does operate an animal shelter in New York City, which serves New York City's animals. So in those commercials, animals that are featured are New York City. And those resources do go to help animals there. They're more traditionally focused on a national level at best practice, doing research to help animal shelters perform at their best and have the tools, the resources to be able to do it. The Capital Area Humane Society does not receive any operating funds from national organizations. It is confusing, though, as many people write a check and think that portion of or all of their gift is going to a local agency. That's not the case. There's certainly a lot of administration that comes in running those national organizations. ASPCA employs over 700 people. They do disaster response. So if our agency encountered 800 dogs and we couldn't care for that particular seizure ourselves, we might call in ASPCA to help us out and to gather national resources, equipment, supplies to help us run a temporary shelter for those victims. So they do good work, and I don't want to come across as that they don't do good work. There's just a lot of people confused about the work they do.
About the nuisance animals, you get a raccoon in your chimney or what have you. Is that part of your duties?
It's not part of our work. So we handle the animals that are on your property on purpose. So the ones that you choose to be there. So while we don't offer assistance to traditional wildlife, if somebody were to confine a deer or a raccoon on our property and did something malicious against it, that would fall in our jurisdiction. But nuisance wildlife or wildlife in general is not part of our purview. The Ohio Wildlife Center does offer, that's another nonprofit organization. They're focused on wildlife that's native to Ohio. And they also offer alternative services to the traditional nuisance tracking, like the varmint guard or the critter control, that kind of thing. They offer a humane solution for those services.
Do you have any services or given any thought to the services of training dogs to help elderly people? And particularly training dogs so that elderly people can walk them, that they know how to walk, that they'll walk behind the person rather than pull on them and pull them down? Or it be service dogs within an elderly person in their home to help them with that?
We do not offer services for assistance dogs, so those that are specifically trained to assist an individual. Why not? I'll be very honest with you. The dogs that we have available for adoption don't stay long enough. They go into homes very quickly, so they don't stay long enough for them to receive that level of training. It takes quite a long time. And that intervention of training to that level needs to really happen at a puppy age. It can be done with an older dog. Certainly they are capable of learning a lot of commands, but for an assistance animal, if you start that training at 4 or 5 years, you may only have 5 years with that pet. That assistance animal where someone's going to be relying on them for their livelihood, you want as many years with that animal as possible. So we actually have quite a common problem, which is that our dog adoption floor kennels are empty. We adopt out those dogs very, very quickly. So we've actually created a program to transfer in dogs from other overpopulated shelters come into our facility for adoption.
So very few of your dogs are euthanized.
Very few of our dogs are euthanized, that's right. We have a very, very high placement rate for our dogs. It's 84.5% for 2012. The reason that we're able to do that is because we have a really tremendous volunteer and staff workforce that work on the total quality of life for an animal. I do want to be clear to distinguish our work with the Franklin County Dog Shelter. That is a government agency. It's funded with government dollars and with dog licenses, and they are responsible for confining stray dogs. That is the work that they do, stray dogs. That's not what we do. They have an $18 million facility on Morse Road. They do good work. That's different from the work that we do at the Humane Society.
How many of those cats were adopted? 606.
I don't know the adoption number specifically off the top of my head, but the placement rate for cats is much, much different than it is for dogs. And that's sheer volume of the cats that we take into our facility. We're very open and transparent about our ability to place cats into loving homes. It is not uncommon on a warm weather month and in the summer on a Saturday to get 80 to 100 cats in a single day.
So what is that rate?
So we're able to, I'm sorry?
What is that rate?
What is the replacement rate for cats? Yeah, it's right around 31.5%. Yeah, exactly. We have a lot of work to do for cats in our community.
All right, last question.
I'm curious, when your staff goes into homes and other places and interact with families, are they trained to make referrals for child abuse and neglect?
Absolutely. Humane agents are mandated reporters in the state, absolutely. So really, it's not just a matter of trying to figure out if child abuse is going on. If there is animal abuse and neglect in the home, it is a form of child abuse. Neglecting a pet, intentionally hurting them, not treating an illness or an injury, not providing proper care for them is a form of child abuse. It is a way to victimize people in the home, is to show, look what I can do to the pet. So it really doesn't matter if there's children involved with a violent crime or an act of neglect, and we're going to report it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel, thank you so much for the presentation. In recognition of that, our club is going to donate a book to one of the schools at which some of our members who tutor in will be in there.
Great. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay. And if you